Welcome back to Green is Good. We're so honored to have with us today my friend, Anna Griffin. She's the publisher, editor-in-chief, and founder of Coco Eco magazine. Welcome to Green is Good, Anna.
Hello, John. How are you?
I am wonderful today, and I'm so thankful you came on the show. You're so busy producing another great magazine. And before we get talking about your wonderful and beautiful magazine, Coco Eco magazine, I want you to share a little bit with our listeners first about your wonderful and interesting life and journey leading up to the founding of Coco Eco magazine.
No, that's very generous of you. Wonderful and exciting. Well, it's interesting. You know, you never know in life where your journey will lead you. And my background was modeling. I was getting into TV hosting and having a terrific time. I got to travel all over the world. I'm from England originally. And being a model took me from Europe to America, out to Asia, and back here to the States. And then about 7 years ago, I started to notice that the noise about global warming was becoming very consistent, alarmingly consistent. Because of seeing so much of the world, I really have been blessed to see some beautiful places, really, really stunning. And the thought that we would be destroying that without even knowing about it was unfathomable to me. I mean, absolutely. And the thought that polar bears that, roam around in the Arctic, that we might actually be killing them without even knowing I couldn't get my head around it. The thought that, in several years we could only find a polar bear in a zoo was laughing. It's a bear, one of the most sort of natural, sort of normal, common species in the world. But I just began this process of staying up at night late and just researching what was happening with global warming. And I got to, after about a year of doing that, I was sort of led forward into, okay, well, how does a girl like me live? I was already recycling. I started recycling as soon as I moved to Los Angeles. And I was doing a lot of work with dog rescue. So I was already into that sort of slightly more mindful phase and started to learn about all these products and companies, beauty and fashion, that were starting to dip their toe into more eco-aware products.
Right.
And then after about a year of doing that, I realized, well, there's a great lot of information I've got, but it doesn't help the planet or other women sitting on my desktop or in my head. I better do something about this. And I'd never worked for a magazine before, ever. I'd always been in front of the camera.
Right.
But it was just such a strong call to action. I didn't want to just do a website. At the time, a few websites had sprung up that were great, but the positioning of eco was still very sort of grassroots. It was still a bit granola and crunchy. And I just had the feeling if we're going to capture women's imagination, we've got to do this on a scale that is more in line with an aspirational, glossy magazine. We've got to capture imagination. Women are feeling sentient beings, and I've got to capture their hearts and excite them with the possibility of living this lifestyle, this new lifestyle. And so that was sort of the beginning of Coco Eco. I didn't want to print at that time. I thought that was a backwards move for an eco product. So started with a digital magazine, and everyone looked a bit sideways at me. We launched on October the 22nd, 2008, and the first issue was online, and everyone thought it was just wonderful and the sort of more exciting way of looking at living sustainably, whether it was travel or fashion or beauty or the cars we could drive. Our first issue, I remember, had the smart car in it. It had an eco-chic trip to Bali in Indonesia. Wow. It was very, very glossy. And the general consensus sort of out in the big world was, well, that's great. And, eco, fabulous. But easy. And I was sort of like the double-headed stepchild standing in the corner of the room for a little while, because two new verticals, eco and digital magazine. And then all of a sudden we had the subprime mortgage crisis. And advertising switched to the internet. Steve Jobs, may he rest in peace, launched the iPad. This was in the following year, 2009. And all of a sudden, the pieces started to fall into place. And digital publishing was very much the way to go. And it turns out, my wanting to save the planet and my passion was the biggest, I say brain fart, I hope that's not rude, but a genius that I never knew I had.
Right.
It's really amazing what passion can do, how passion can drive you, especially when you're in a driven state to make the world a better place.
Right.
It's really incredible then how the chips fall. So that was that. And we carried on digitally publishing, and we've really been so blessed to work with some tremendous people. We've had some great cover stars. We've had some great people, inside, people like Richard Branson and the Virgin Group who have been streets ahead in terms of what they're up to with alternative fuels for the airplanes, what Richard actually personally does with Necker Island of conservation, who's been greening it now. People like Sting, who's been out there fighting for years for the rainforest. Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, we've featured all of them. And then this year, it was just really, where do we go from here? And I felt that, to really do it was an easy, Coco Eco was a bit stuck. So, as always, as an entrepreneur, which way do we go now? We've got a great product. What are we going to do with it? And I was coerced, to go into print. And print, as I said to you at the beginning, it wasn't an option for me.
Right.
But I was really suggested that I needed to do this. And so we put Coco Eco into print this year, publishing our first print issue, Earth Rock. We launched in June the 25th in LA, with Andy McDowell on our cover. And it has been fantastic, the response to it. I'm very clear that advocate publication for women, Coco Eco, there is a place for it, and there is a desire for the content. And it's so exciting to see now, the general public shift and get more in line with something that I know you, have been working on for years. And now it's just seems, people are getting more aligned with it. And in the case of Coco Eco, the way is very, very, the way forward is very clear and it's very strong for us. So we are in preparation now for our second print issue, which is called Trashed, and which will hit the newsstands and all over the nation and hopefully some retail stores. I can't talk too much about that right now, but that's an exciting development. And that will be mid-October. And then next year we have 4 quarterly issues scheduled. And I'm really having a terrific time, John. I think doing something to make the world a better place just inspires and excites me every day. And as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure a lot of your readers or your listeners, forgive me, I'm so used to saying readers. I'm sure a lot of your listeners, we're starting businesses. It's a tough climate out there. It's really hard. Yeah. You've got to have so much faith and so much perseverance and tenacity. You've got to work really hard to build a good product that can survive out in the general public. But if you build a good product and are fortunate enough as I am to really have attracted some phenomenal people such as yourself that really make my work day such a better day, it's incredible what you can achieve. It really, really is. And it's so worth persevering, particularly if you are an entrepreneur who's out there wanting to do your part for the world and its people. It's a really great opportunity to jump in and get involved and be a part of this great shift that's occurring, and really have your work count for something. I just said, after 16, 18-hour days, which I do 16-hour days, 6-7 days a week, and I'm exhausted, but I'm so happy and I'm so grateful and so excited for, the moment my alarm goes off the next morning to begin again. So, that's Coco Eco, and that's me.
And for our listeners out there, your magazine now is both online and offline. And to look at it online, which I am right now, which is a beautiful website, it's www.coco, C-O-C-O, eco, E-C-O, mag.com. cocoecomag.com, and it's also available offline. And as you said, the last issue had the beautiful Andy McDowell on the cover, and it was just the most gorgeous issue with chock full of great information, and as is your website. So for our listeners out there, both the website and both the offline now magazine are just wonderful to pick up in your travels and to enjoy. And for our listeners out there that just joined us, we've got Anna Griffin. She's the publisher and editor-in-chief of Coco Eco magazine with us today. She's also my good friend. And, Anna, for our listeners, share a little bit about the definition of sustainability, how you're mixing both eco and stylish simultaneously with regards to sustainability.
Well, I think that's the point now. That's a great question, John. Thank you. For your listeners, just to make it really simple for them, Coco Eco, the name came about for me because I wanted to find something that was obvious in terms of our eco commitment in our content, but also spoke to our love of fashion and beauty and glamour. So Coco actually is after Coco Chanel, who is one of the most legendary fashion designers of all time, one of my favorites. I think all girls love Chanel, but Coco Chanel herself, she had an incredible journey to get to where she got, and she really, in her time, stood up against the status quo and forged a way through to be who she became. And then Eco, obviously, is the eco-friendly part. So I wanted it something catchy that also spoke to our love of fashion and beauty. And it really signals what living sustainably is now. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and there are no compromises. And I think, environmental awareness, it's been a real grassroots movement. It's really been sort of from the people that have really come up from loving and protecting the earth and sort of then trickled out into the mainstream. And I think the general public had an association towards this of, hugging trees and wearing hemp and feeling like patchouli. And it's just not that way anymore, and there's so much accessible. So my thing when I was starting the magazine, I noticed that there was a lot of messaging out there towards eco that was really bludgeoning. It was either fear-based or it was very lecturing in its tone, or bullying almost. It's like, you've got to do this. And, with the best will in the world, no one wants to be preached at. No one wants to be made to do something. And no one wants to be frightened into anything. I think women have very, very tough lives nowadays. Life is busy and life is tough, as you know. But, they've got to worry about food on the table for their children, keeping a roof over their head. Some women work 2 jobs. It's life's not fun and games for everybody right now. So I wanted to produce this messaging in a way that was accurate and factual and in integrity, but could really excite women with the possibilities now for living in this space, and that there are no compromises. I always say you can, living eco, you can have your cake and eat it too, as long as it's organic. So really, between beauty or vegan or gluten-free,
I like it.
Whichever way you want to go. But it's really that accessible now, and it's everything from travel and airplanes, which you knew, people, when I launched my first issue and we were talking about airplanes in the second issue, and then you loved we had Richard Branson's Richard. And, just people were waggling their fingers and shaking their heads, airplanes. It's like, well, yeah, we've all got to travel. People, either for pleasure, but mostly for business, have to get around. We're not all going to suddenly stop and go live in teepees. The world will grind to a halt. So how do we incorporate, our lives now with this in mind, and with being more sustainable and more aware? So, and that was it, to give women choices so they wouldn't have to go and research all the information that I already knew, because I'd put, 6 years in studying this. Maybe they don't have the time to. Yeah.
Speaking of choices, we have about 5.5 minutes left. Can you share some of your favorite eco-minded brands with regards to fashion, beauty, and lifestyle? Give our listeners a little tease of all the visibility that you have because of your hard work, and you get to see a lot of these great sustainable and non-sustainable products. What are some of your favorite and great ones out there that women should be using in terms of not only making the world a better place, but also safer for them in terms of less, using products that have less chemicals that they should be avoiding and things of that such? Some of your favorite eco-minded brands.
Okay, yeah, it's very easy. As far as beauty is concerned, I think women should always check the labels. If there's something that you can't read on the back of it, if you can't pronounce it, don't put it on your body. Your skin is your largest living organ. It's not a barrier. So anything you put into your skin goes straight into your bloodstream. And there's no coincidence between rising rates of cancer in the world and the products we're using, that we're eating, foods with GMO in. It just goes on and on. So with beauty, stay away from anything that's got sulfates and parabens, and there are loads of great lines out there. Everything from Burt's Bees, which you can find in CVS, which has some great products for both mom and for their children, is a big one of mine. I love Timberland, the clothing company, who, everyone associates them with the great outdoors, and they are the great outdoors, but they also have in their Earth Keepers collection awesome boots, Levi's now, great jeans, Under Armour when you're working out. Nobody knows this. Nike. Even the big guys like Gucci have started keeping some more sustainably minded. And then in terms of lifestyle, if you're looking at cars, you should go with Mercedes having the B-Class out, which came out a few weeks ago, and it's all electric. You obviously have BMW doing things, Cadillac, Ford. And there's something for everybody. With airlines, Virgin, I love Virgin. And actually Lufthansa and Air France for Europe just got the Leaf Award for the best in sustainability. I think that's the point. There's mainstream brands out there for everybody. Everybody is now doing something, which is really, really exciting. But women really want to be careful of certain things. With beauty, for example, I always say change your deodorant. Get away from the commercial products that have aluminum in them. Yeah. Aluminum has no business being in your breast tissue, which is right next to your armpit. So go with a more natural product, Tom's of Maine. Great. I love Tom's of Maine. Great toothpaste. Again, you want to keep fluoride out of your mouth. And again, when you're looking at things like fashion, for example, and I talk about Timberland, and I've got a pair of boots that I just love. They're great whether in New York, running around in the rain between meetings. I could also go out into the snow in these things, or I could wear them here in LA. And they're dyed without using formaldehyde. And I think that's the thing. Women should know that there are lots of products like lead going into lipstick, formaldehyde going into leather tanning, aluminum in deodorant. The mainstream, very commercial products are using these ingredients, and they're going into your bloodstream. And, with the best one in the world, no one wants lead, aluminum, or formaldehyde in their system. So it's really looking at it like that. Looking at things that are vegan, that don't hurt animals is always a great way to go. But it's really stay away from the nasty chemicals. I think that's the thing with eco. It sort of starts with, for me, love of planet, but really the big picture is love of health, personal health. And if it's bad for the planet, it is bad for you too. And it's really that simple. If it's poisoning our waterways and our land, then if you're putting it in your body, you can bet sure as eggs are eggs, it's poisoning your blood too.
Anna, we're down to the last minute. Shameless plug. Where are people going to see Coco Eco in the years to come?
Okay, well, if I have my way, they'll be seeing it at Barnes & Noble and Whole Foods.
I love it.
If I have my way.
You will.
And stay tuned. And then also we'll be going into some hotels across the country, newsstands, again across the country. Our immediate push is LA and New York. We've had a great demand for our contacts from both of those cities. So yeah, watch the space from CocoEcoMag.com, new issue coming October the 15th. Thank you, Anna. We're going to have you back. For our listeners out there, go to www.cocoecomag.com or to a great bookstore or store near you to find
Anna's great magazine on the shelves right now. Thank you, Anna, for being an inspiring ecopreneur and sustainability superstar. You are truly living proof that green is good.